My name is Sandra, and I'm 32 years old. I work as a software developer for a big tech company here in California. The pay is great. I mean, really great, actually. I make more money than most people my age, and I should probably feel grateful for that. But sometimes I wonder if having money just paints a giant target on your back for everyone else's problems. I have a family. There's my parents, mom and dad, both in their early 70s now. They retired about 5 years ago. Dad was in construction his whole life, and mom was a secretary at a law firm. They're not doing too bad for themselves, but retirement money doesn't stretch as far as it used to. Then there's my older sister, Lisa. She's 36 and married to a guy named Mark. They have 2 kids, my nephew, Jake, who's 15, and my niece, Emma, who's 13. Here's the thing about my family. They're always short on cash. And guess who they come to when bills pile up? That's right, me. It started small when I first got my job 6 years ago. Mom would call and say something like, "Sandra, honey, we're a little tight this month. Could you help us out with the electric bill?" And of course, I said yes. I mean, they're my parents. They raised me, fed me, put a roof over my head. It felt like the right thing to do. But it didn't stop there. Pretty soon, it was grocery money, then dad's medications, then the car insurance. Lisa got in on it too. First it was Mark's truck needs new tires, and we just don't have it right now. Then it was Jake wants to take this computer programming class, but it costs $800. Always something. Always an emergency. The worst part was that it only went one way. When I needed help, suddenly everyone was busy or broke or had their own issues to deal with. I found that out the hard way about 8 months ago when I bought my apartment. I'd been saving for years to get out of that tiny rental and finally buy something of my own. Moving day was coming up fast, and I had way more stuff than I could handle by myself. I called Lisa and asked if Mark could help me out for a few hours, just help me load the truck and unload at the new place. Mark seemed okay with it when I talked to him directly. But 2 days before the move, Lisa called me back. "Sandra, about Saturday, Mark can't help you move." "What happened? Is he sick?" "No, he's fine, but we talked about it and we decided that you need to handle your own problems. You can hire movers or figure something else out. Mark and I have our own family to worry about." That was it. She hung up. I ended up hiring professional movers, which cost me $400 I hadn't planned on spending. But you know what? I didn't complain. I didn't call them back and make a big scene. I just handled it myself like they said I should. But I remembered that conversation. Still, I kept helping them. Every month there was something. Mom needed money for groceries. Dad's prescription costs went up. Lisa's car broke down again. Jake needed new cleats for soccer. Emma wanted a laptop for school. Always something. Always urgent. Always my responsibility somehow. At the end of October, I decided to visit my parents for dinner. I hadn't seen them in a few weeks, and I thought it would be nice to catch up. When I got there, Lisa, Mark, Jake, and Emma were already sitting around the dining room table. The whole family was there. Mom had made her usual pot roast, and we all sat down to eat. But something felt off right from the start. Mom spent the entire first half of dinner talking to Lisa about Emma's school activities and Jake's soccer games. She asked Lisa about work, about Mark's job, about their plans for the holidays. Meanwhile, I sat there eating my food, and Mom didn't ask me a single question. Not about work, not about my apartment, not about anything. Then Dad coughed. Just a little cough. But Mom turned to look at him, and he gave her this look like they had planned something. Mom put down her fork and turned to me with this big fake smile. "Sandra, honey, we've all been talking and we've decided that we really need to buy a country house where the whole family can relax together." I blinked at her. "A what? A country house? You know, somewhere outside the city where your father and I can spend more time in our retirement. Somewhere the kids can run around and play when they come visit." I looked around the table. Lisa was nodding. Mark was nodding. Even Jake and Emma were smiling like this was the greatest idea in the world. I was the only one who seemed surprised by this. "Mom, this isn't really the time to be buying a country house," I said. "Don't you remember what happened 6 months ago with your foundation?" Mom's smile tightened a little. "What about it?" "The crack, Mom. That huge crack that appeared in the foundation. You called those specialists and they said you needed to strengthen the whole foundation urgently. They said it would cost a lot of money. Shouldn't you fix your current house before you think about buying another one?" Mom waved her hand like she was brushing away a fly. "Oh, that's all nonsense. That crack isn't going anywhere. Your father and I need to think about our quality of life in retirement. We need fresh air and space to relax. So we need you to buy us this house." I stared at her. "You need me to what?" "Buy us the house, Sandra. You're the only one in the family who can afford it." "Mom, I'm paying a mortgage on my own apartment. I don't have money to make a down payment on another house." Mom's eyes lit up like she had been waiting for me to say exactly that. "Well, I've already looked at this perfect place. It's only $285,000. So the down payment would be small and the monthly payments would be tiny. Only $285,000. Like that was pocket change. I looked around the table again. Dad was staring at me expectantly. Lisa had her arms crossed, looking at me like I was being difficult. Mark was nodding along. Even the kids were watching me, waiting for my answer. "Mom, I can't buy you a house," I said slowly. "I have my own mortgage to pay." Mom leaned forward. The monthly payments would only be about $1,500. Only $1,500 on top of my own mortgage payment of $2,000 a month. "I'm not taking on a mortgage for a house I'll never live in," I said firmly. "I'm not doing this." The temperature in the room dropped. Mom's face went cold. "Well," she said icily, "I guess we know where we stand now. It means we thought we could count on our own daughter," Dad said. "Very disappointing, Sandra." I looked around the table one last time. They were all staring at me like I was the worst person in the world. There was no point in arguing anymore. "I think I should go," I said quietly. "I think you should too," Mom replied. Nobody followed me to the door. Nobody said goodbye. I drove home that night feeling like I'd lost my family over something that should never have been asked of me in the first place. 2 months passed after that dinner. 2 long months where my phone stayed silent. No calls from Mom asking for grocery money, no texts from Dad about his medication costs, no panicked calls from Lisa about Jake needing new soccer equipment or Emma wanting something for school. The strangest part was that Lisa didn't even ask me for money. That was really weird for her. Usually she called at least twice a month with some emergency that required my help, but nothing. Complete silence. Thanksgiving came and went. I didn't get an invitation to my parents' house. I spent the day alone in my apartment, ordering Chinese food and watching movies. Part of me kept hoping the phone would ring, that maybe Mom would call and say they were being silly, that of course I should come over for dinner. But the phone never rang. As Christmas got closer, I started feeling hopeful again. Maybe they'd had time to think about everything. Maybe they realized they'd been asking too much of me. Christmas was always a big deal in our family. Surely they wouldn't let this stupid fight ruin Christmas. I went shopping and bought presents for everyone. Really nice presents too. I got Dad a new tablet because his old one was falling apart. I bought Mom a beautiful cashmere sweater that I knew she'd love. For Lisa, I found this expensive perfume she'd been wanting for months. Mark got a nice watch, and I bought Jake a new gaming headset and Emma a jewelry box she'd mentioned once. I spent almost $2,000 on those gifts, way more than I usually spent. But I wanted to show them that I still cared about the family, that I still wanted to be part of everything, even if I couldn't buy them a house. A week before Christmas, I finally worked up the courage to call Mom. My heart was pounding when I dialed the number. "Hi, Mom, it's Sandra." "Oh, hi, Sandra." Her voice was neutral, not warm, but not angry either. I was wondering, are we doing Christmas this year at your house like always? There was a pause. "Yes, we're doing Christmas. Yes, you're invited, Sandra. Your family." I felt this huge wave of relief. It wasn't the warmest conversation we'd ever had, but at least I was invited. At least we were going to be together for Christmas. Maybe everything would go back to normal. On December 24th, I loaded up my car with all the presents and drove to my parents' house. Lisa's car was already in the driveway. When I walked in, everyone was there. Lisa, Mark, Jake, and Emma. The house smelled like Mom's famous ham and sweet potatoes. I put all the presents under the Christmas tree. There were already some gifts there, but I noticed I brought way more than anyone else. When we all sat down for dinner, everything felt normal again. Dad asked me about my job. Lisa told me about Emma's school play. Mark actually seemed happy to see me. We talked and laughed just like we used to. Nobody mentioned the country house. Nobody seemed angry anymore. The dinner was so nice that when Mom asked if I wanted to stay over in my old room, I said yes. It felt good to be back in the house where I grew up. It felt like things were going to be okay again. The next morning was Christmas Day. I woke up excited for the first time in months. We all gathered around the Christmas tree in our pajamas, just like when Lisa and I were kids. Everyone was opening presents and saying thank you, and I was just sitting there watching them, feeling happy that I could make them all so excited. But then I realized something weird. All the presents were opened, but I hadn't opened anything. I looked around under the tree, but there was nothing left with my name on it. "Where's my Christmas present?" I asked. The room went completely quiet. Everyone stopped what they were doing and looked at each other, and then I couldn't believe it. They started laughing. Mom was the first to speak, and she was still chuckling. "Santa Claus doesn't give presents to ungrateful children." I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. "What?" Lisa jumped in, grinning. "You brought this on yourself, Sandra. You refused to help the family when we needed you most. This is what happens." Dad nodded seriously. "We raised you, Sandra. We gave you everything. And when we asked for your help, you turned your back on us. Ungrateful children don't get Christmas presents." I sat there in my pajamas, surrounded by all the expensive gifts I bought them, listening to them explain why I didn't deserve a single present in return. Not even something small, not even a card. I wanted to scream at them. I wanted to list every single time I'd helped them over the years, every bill I'd paid, every emergency I'd fixed, every time I'd come running when they called. But looking at their faces, I knew it wouldn't matter. In their minds, I was the villain. I was the ungrateful daughter who wouldn't buy them a house. "Okay," I said quietly. I stood up and walked to my old room. I packed my things while everyone else stayed in the living room, probably talking about what a terrible person I was. When I came back downstairs with my bag, nobody said goodbye. Nobody tried to stop me. I walked out of that house on Christmas morning, and I decided right then that I was done. I was done being their ATM. I was done being their doormat. From now on, they could solve their own problems. For the first time since I had started my job, I wasn't sending money to anyone. My paychecks went into my own bank account and stayed there. I watched my savings grow every month, and it was incredible. I'd forgotten how much money I actually made when I wasn't giving half of it away to my family. I started paying extra on my mortgage. Instead of the minimum payment of $2,000, I was paying $3,000. At this rate, I could have my apartment paid off in 10 years instead of 30. The thought of being completely debt-free before I turned 45 made me giddy. I also started doing things for myself that I'd been putting off for years. I bought a new couch for my living room. I got my car detailed. I even booked a vacation to Hawaii for April, a real vacation, not just a long weekend somewhere cheap. The silence from them was almost funny. Lisa, who used to call me at least twice a month begging for money, hadn't contacted me once. Mom, who used to guilt-trip me about grocery bills and Dad's medications, hadn't sent a single text. It was like they'd completely forgotten I existed now that I wasn't useful to them anymore. I hoped it would stay that way forever. I hoped they'd learn to solve their own problems and would leave me alone. But deep down, I knew it was too good to last. People like my family don't change. They just wait until they're desperate enough to swallow their pride. That call came in late March, 3 months after Christmas. I was at work in the middle of debugging some code when my phone rang. I looked at the screen and saw Mom's name. For a second, I thought about not answering, but curiosity got the better of me. "Hello, Sandra." Mom's voice was high and panicked. "Oh, thank God you answered. What's wrong, Mom? It's the house, the foundation. It's completely falling apart." I sat back in my chair. The foundation, the thing I tried to warn them about 6 months ago when they wanted me to buy them a country house instead of fixing their current one. What happened? The crack got so much worse. There's this huge gap now and everything is crumbling. We had to call an emergency inspection and they said the house is unsafe to live in. They said we need to fix it immediately or the whole house could collapse. She was practically screaming into the phone. I could hear Dad shouting something in the background and Mom shouting back at him. "How much will it cost to fix?" I asked, even though I already knew what was coming next. $50,000, Sandra. We need $50,000 to replace the whole foundation, and we need it right now. There it was, the real reason for the call. "Mom, why are you calling me about this? Because you have savings. We know you do. You have to help us." I almost laughed. After 3 months of silence, after that humiliating Christmas morning, after telling me that Santa doesn't give presents to ungrateful children, now they wanted my help again. "Mom, remember what you told me at Christmas about ungrateful children? That sounds like your problem, not mine. Sandra Elizabeth, don't you dare talk to me like that. I am your mother. You're right. You are my mother. And at Christmas, you laughed in my face and told me I was ungrateful. You punished me for not buying you a vacation house by making sure I was the only person who didn't get a single Christmas gift. We were upset about the country house. But this is different." "No, Mom, it's not different. You showed me exactly how you feel about me. I'm only valuable to you when I'm writing checks." "Well, guess what? Ask Santa Claus for help with your foundation. Maybe he'll be more generous to ungrateful parents than he is to ungrateful children." "Sandra, please. You can't let us lose our house. You should have thought about that before you decided to treat me like garbage." I hung up the phone. My hands were shaking a little, but I felt good. Really good. For the first time in my life, I'd stood up to my mother when she tried to guilt-trip me into paying for something. The phone rang again immediately. I declined the call. It rang again. Declined. Mom called me 6 more times that afternoon, and I declined every single call. Then the texts started. "Sandra, please call me back. We need to talk. This is about more than money. This is about family. Your father is having chest pains from the stress. Please help us." I deleted every text without responding. That evening, when I got home from work, there was a voicemail from Lisa. I almost deleted it without listening, but decided I wanted to hear what she had to say. "Sandra, it's me. Mom told me you hung up on her today. I can't believe you're being so cold. This isn't about the Christmas thing anymore. Mom and Dad could lose their house. Their house, Sandra, where we grew up, where all our memories are. I know you're mad about Christmas, but you have to get over it. Family comes first. You know that. Call me back. Family comes first." That was rich coming from someone who told me to handle my own problems when I needed help moving. Family comes first, but only when it benefited them. I poured myself a glass of wine and sat on my beautiful new couch in my soon-to-be mortgage-free apartment, and I didn't feel guilty at all. They'd made their choice at Christmas. They'd shown me exactly where I stood in their priorities. Now they could live with the consequences. The foundation crack that I'd warned them about months ago was finally catching up with them. Maybe if they'd listened to me instead of demanding I buy them a vacation house, they would have had money to fix it before it became a $50,000 emergency. I thought my refusal on the phone would be the end of it. I thought they'd get the message that I wasn't going to help them anymore, but I was wrong. They weren't giving up that easily. The next evening, I came home from work to find 3 people standing outside my apartment door. Mom, Dad, and Lisa. They'd driven all the way to my place to ambush me. I considered turning around and leaving, but there was nowhere to go. They'd already seen me walking down the hallway. "Sandra," Mom called out, "we need to talk to you." I sighed and walked up to my door. "What are you doing here?" "We came to talk sense into you," Dad said, "since you won't answer your phone." I unlocked my door, knowing this conversation was going to happen whether I wanted it or not. They followed me inside, looking around my apartment like they were checking to see how well I was living while they suffered. "What do you want?" I asked, not bothering to offer them seats. They all started talking at once. Mom was crying about how they might lose the house. Dad was saying I had a duty as a daughter. Lisa was going on about family loyalty and how I was being cruel. "Stop," I said loudly, one at a time. Mom stepped forward, tears streaming down her face. "Sandra, honey, we're desperate. The foundation is getting worse every day. The inspector said if we don't fix it soon, the whole house could collapse. We could die in our sleep." "Then fix it," I said simply. "With what money?" Dad demanded. "We're on a fixed income, the same way everyone else fixes their houses. Get a loan, sell something, figure it out." "Sandra, please," Dad said, his voice getting louder. "We raised you. We fed you, clothed you, sent you to college. You owe us. I paid you back. I've been paying you back for 6 years, thousands and thousands of dollars. And when I said no, you punished me by making sure I was the only person who didn't get a Christmas gift." "We were hurt," Lisa said weakly. "You were cruel. You laughed at me. You called me ungrateful while I was sitting there surrounded by expensive gifts I bought for all of you." The room went quiet for a minute. I could see them trying to figure out a new angle, a new way to guilt trip me into giving them money. "Sandra," Mom said, "finally, you're a wealthy person. $50,000 is nothing to you. You make good money, you don't have a family to support, you can afford it." There it was again. Because I was single. Because I didn't have kids. My money didn't matter. My needs didn't matter. My future didn't matter. "You're right," I said. "I do make good money and I'm going to keep it." "Sandra," Mom gasped like I'd said something horrible. "You want to know what I'm doing with my money? I'm paying extra on my mortgage so I can own my apartment in 10 years. I'm saving for retirement. I'm planning a vacation to Hawaii. I'm living my life instead of constantly worrying about what crisis you're going to call me about next." "How can you be so selfish?" Lisa demanded. "How can you be so entitled? I've been bailing you out for years, and you've never once said thank you." "Not really. It was always just expected. Sandra will fix it. Sandra has money." "Well, Sandra is done." Dad's face was turning red. "After everything we've done for you, what have you done for me lately? When's the last time any of you asked how I was doing? When's the last time you cared about anything in my life besides my bank account?" They looked at each other like they couldn't believe I was being so unreasonable. "This is ridiculous," Mom said. "We're not leaving until you agree to help us. Then you're going to be here a long time. I want you to leave now." They stood there for another minute, probably hoping I'd change my mind. When I didn't, they finally started moving toward the door. "This isn't over," Mom said. "Yes, it is." After they left, I sat down on my couch and waited. I knew what was coming next. And sure enough, over the next few days, my phone started ringing with calls from relatives. First, it was my Aunt Carol. "Sandra, your mother told me about the foundation. You have to help them. They're family." Then my cousin Mike. "Come on, Sandra, it's $50,000. That's nothing to someone with your job." My Uncle Robert even drove to my office to confront me. "I can't believe you're letting your parents go homeless over money." The worst was when Aunt Margaret showed up at my apartment with her Bible, wanting to read me verses about honoring your father and mother. "If you're so concerned about honoring parents," I told her, "why don't you give them the $50,000? She left pretty quickly after that. The calls eventually stopped. A month went by with no contact from anyone in my family. Then I ran into Mrs. Peterson, my parents' neighbor at the grocery store. I'd known her since I was a kid, and she'd always been friendly. "Oh, Sandra," she said, "I heard about your parents' house troubles. They sold their car and that old boat of your father's, got $25,000 for everything. Then they took out a bank loan for the other $25,000. I was surprised. They'd actually solved their own problem. The foundation is all fixed now, Mrs. Peterson continued. But your parents sure are bitter about the whole thing. They keep saying you abandoned them when they needed you most. Good for them for handling it themselves. Mrs. Peterson gave me a strange look. They're going to be paying that loan off for years, Sandra, at their age. That's what loans are for. I finished my shopping and drove home thinking about what she'd said. They'd found the money after all. They'd sold things and gotten a loan just like I'd suggested. They hadn't needed me at all. They just wanted me to solve their problem so they didn't have to make any sacrifices themselves. I don't feel guilty about any of it. They made their choice when they decided to humiliate me at Christmas. They showed me that I was only valuable to them as a source of money. So I stopped being their source of money. Now I don't talk to any of them. Not my parents, not Lisa, not the relatives who tried to guilt trip me. My phone stays quiet and my bank account keeps growing. I have friends who actually care about me as a person, not just for what I can do for them. I have hobbies and plans and a future that doesn't revolve around other people's financial emergencies. The end of the story.